According to Statista.com, in 2018, over 2 billion cookies was eaten in America alone. That means the average American eats about 300 cookies per year and 35,000 cookies during their lifetime. Out of the 2 billion cookies that were eaten, it is estimated that 50% was chocolate chip. That tells me that out of all of you here today listening, there's a good chance that 50% of you would say that chocolate chip cookies are your favorite. I am here today to teach you how to make the best chocolate chip cookies ever. I am an expert chocolate chip cookie baker from Utah. I entered my chocolate chip cookies into the Utah State Fair and won first place, the blue ribbon. That tells me that my chocolate chip cookies are the best in the whole state. I will share with you my recipe. I will teach you all the tips and tricks you need so that you can go home and make these amazing chocolate chip cookies with confidence. The first thing you need is a good recipe, and I am going to share with you today my recipe. Here it is. The first ingredient is shortening. And why I choose shortening over butter is because shortening melts at a higher temperature than butter, and it gives the cookie a chewier texture in the middle with a crispy on the outside. The butter melts at a lower temperature, and so as it melts, it releases moisture, and that moisture makes that cookie crispy. And so I prefer the chewy texture that the shortening gives the cookies. Also, you will need 3/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon soda, 1 teaspoon salt, and 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. The first thing I'm going to tell you what you need to do is preheat your oven. And there's 2 reasons that you preheat your oven. The first reason is that cookies bake at the correct temperature perfectly. And the second reason is if you preheat your oven before you make your dough, when the dough is finished and ready to bake, the oven is ready, and so you can just throw them right in. The second thing you'll need is that you need to gather your equipment. You will need a baking pan, a bowl, a rubber scraper, measuring cups and measuring spoons, and an electric mixer. If you don't have an electric mixer, you can still make these. It's just a little bit easier with an electric mixer. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to add the first 7 ingredients into the bowl. You will add your shortening and your sugars, the vanilla, the eggs, the baking soda, salt, and you will just dump it all into the bowl, and you will stir and mix it until it is nice and fluffy, and it's going to be like a light tan color. If it looks like it's separated at all, keep mixing it until it's fluffy and that tan color. After you get it to that point, you will add your 2.5 cups of flour and mix it really good. Make sure that flour is incorporated well. At this point, I want you to pick up some of that dough, and if it is sticky at all, I want you to add 1 measured tablespoon of flour. Now, why you might need to add more flour is because flour has a different moisture content at different times. If you make the cookies on a stormy day, that flour is going to have more moisture in it. If you make them on a sunny, hot day, it will be less moisture. Or if you live at a higher altitude or a lower altitude, that affects the moisture in the flour. So sometimes you might need to add a little bit more flour. Once you get that flour incorporated, I want you to pick up that dough. And the dough should be the consistency of Play-Doh, like right when it comes out of the can. And you can move, it's really pliable and easy to manipulate. That is what this dough needs to be like. Once you get it to that point, you can mix in your semi-sweet chocolate chips. Now there's one reason I love to add semi-sweet chocolate chips instead of milk chocolate chips, and it's because the semi-sweet chocolate adds a bitter element that complements the sweet in the cookie. And if you just add milk chocolate chips, they tend to just add more sweetness instead of a new element to the cookie. After you have them all mixed up, you will take that dough and you will roll it into a log. And from that log, you will break off chunks of cookie dough. The reason I don't roll these cookies is because if you roll a cookie and you bake it, you will only get one surface on top. It will be flat, it'll brown nicely, and it'll be a beautiful cookie, but it'll be missing the elements that I'm looking for. When you break that cookie dough off, you get texture on that cookie. You get some high texture and low texture, and when you bake it, that texture browns at different levels, and at different, some is deeper brown and lighter brown, and that gives that cookie elements of flavor and just adds richness and good to the cookie. Once you get them broken off, you will put them on a pan and you will bake them for 10 to 12 minutes. Now, why I say 10 to 12 minutes is because ovens, even though we all set them the correct temperature, ovens bake some higher and some cooler. And so check them at 10 minutes. See how they look. Are they that golden brown that you want? If not, bake them a little bit longer. But keep a close eye on them. And when you take them out of the oven, I want you to smell them. I want you to smell them really deeply and see how they smell. Because a perfectly done cookie will smell different than an underbaked cookie or an overbaked cookie. So smell them and begin to memorize that smell so that as you make these in the future over and over, you can recognize that perfectly done smelled cookie. When they're all done, you will have a plate full of amazing, yummy smelling cookies. They will look like these cookies with the darker brown and the lighter brown textures brown to a different level so that you get that amazing texture flavor that adds elements to these cookies. Now that you know my recipe and you have been taught all the tips and tricks, you can go home with confidence and bake these cookies anytime you want chocolate chip cookies. Thanks so much for listening.